Welcome back, everyone. Michael here with Offshore Citizen. I was having a conversation today with a client, and we were talking a little bit about a topic that you may have seen some sort of TikTok, Instagram, short little clips, YouTube, whatever stuff about, which is related to buying a house. And what you will see is there are some fairly famous individuals, the most notable ones probably being Grant Cardone and Robert Kiyosaki, talking about how you shouldn't buy a house is a terrible investment, it's not an asset, etc. And we were just talking about, international living and lifestyle and things like that. And so today I'm going to share with you my thoughts on their perspectives, and we're going to find out whether you should or shouldn't buy and what the circumstances are. So let's dive in. Before we do, if you haven't already, please hit the subscribe button, hit the notification bell. Thank you for your support. Really appreciate you being here. If it's your first time, I am Michael. We at Offshore Citizen are some of the foremost international tax experts in the world. We specialize in helping people to relocate to other countries, to set up businesses in other countries, to do banking in other countries, basically to optimize your life globally, etc. If you're interested in any of those things, please reach out to us. You can book a call with me, calendly.com/Michael-Rosmer. There's a link in the description below, or send a message through offshorecitizen.net. Okay, so let's just quickly review. As I said, Grant Cardone is there saying, no, you shouldn't buy a house. Like, what are you talking about? Blah, blah, blah. And then you've got Robert Kiyosaki, who kind of famously, I think as early as Rich Dad, Poor Dad, was saying that your house is not an asset. And so we have, these two people, these gurus. I'm a little bit hesitant to use the word guru about anyone. I don't really like that thinking. It's like, well, fundamentally, is the information accurate or inaccurate? Let's judge it based on the information, not necessarily based on who is saying it, right? And so here's kind of the Robert Kiyosaki perspective. The Robert Kiyosaki perspective is an asset is something that puts money into your pocket every month, and a liability is something that takes money out of your pocket every month. And so hence, because a house is not putting money into your house every month, a house is not an asset, therefore you should probably not buy a house. Grant Cardone is busy kind of espousing that you should invest probably in his funds. And so I think that's one of the little biases that I have there immediately is I notice a lot of the people who say, hey, your house is not an asset, you shouldn't buy a house, et cetera, are usually selling some sort of investment product or something else. They want you to get into their thing. And so I don't necessarily think that it's great advice. Now, I do think there's something to be said for if you're in a situation where you're looking at opportunity cost and you're wanting to be building really aggressively, then certainly the best ROI on your money is almost never going to be a house. Gary Vee kind of notably made a comment about this, of how he bought a house sometime around the period of time when he could have invested in Facebook or whatever. And so the differential between how much that property would grow in value and how much the investment in some of these other things would grow in value was relatively high. This being said, in practical terms, I don't find that people are mostly really aggressively building. So some people like myself have very aggressive building goals. And, I'm aggressively looking for pretty high rates of return and things like that, and sort of areas that I can deploy a lot of capital and scale it up and things like this. That's not most people. So I don't think that it's necessarily great to give that advice to everyone else, right? So I would say a few things. First of all, I disagree fairly strongly with Robert Kiyosaki's analysis of a house not being an asset. I think that when you're looking at the concept of assets and liabilities, you need to look at both how much money you're getting in, but also how much money you're saving. And the reality is every single month you have to rent. You have to put money out somewhere. And so if you're not putting money out to rent, then that is basically like you're getting money in, which is effectively what you're doing when you're buying a property, right? And you might say, okay, well, you might be paying a mortgage, and so that mortgage could be outgoing funds and so on and so forth. Okay, that's a fair position. If you buy well, then frequently the cost of the mortgage should be less than the cost of rent. And you can kind of logically think this through, because people are investing and they're not putting properties out for rent not to make money, right? They're wanting to make money. So it does depend a little bit on what's the property you're buying, what's the market you're buying in, et cetera. But if you can turn around and put out less money each month because of the fact that you purchased versus renting, then that is a form of an asset. Certainly then you've got the capital appreciation side and the fact that you're locking in, like typically when you buy a property, you have a fixed kind of cost. You sort of know roughly what it's going to cost, whereas your rent can go up every year, right? So you're sort of protecting yourself in some regard, which I don't think is an entirely bad idea. Gives you sort of a degree of stability. Now, there is some research that suggests people who own their own place actually have lower incomes on average than people who don't, at least within kind of a comparable quintile or quartile or whatever. And this is supposed to be attributed to the fact that it's more difficult to relocate when you're owning a place, and therefore you tend not to move to pursue opportunities. And there's probably some truth to that as well. So of course it depends on the stage that you're at in life. Now, this being said, a lot of people also overbuy, and if you overbuy, then certainly it's a liability. However, I would say, just kind of think, and you kind of imagine Robert Kiyosaki or Grant Cardone. They can say, okay, well, hey, listen, you should rent, and you should go and buy an investment property. Okay, well, actually, the best investment property you can really buy is your own, and here's why. You have zero vacancy. Vacancy is probably, you should budget about a 10% cost in there, and you don't have to worry about tenants being a problem. Like, in a sense, you're your own best tenant, right? So the property management costs that would normally be there, probably 10%, are gone, and the vacancy rates are gone. So hence the ROI on your own property is actually higher than it should be on any other investment property, assuming that you're going to pick an equivalent property in that situation. So hence, if you believe in buying real estate, and these guys both advocate that you should, then in theory, buying your own home is A, the easiest money you will get, so easiest to kind of get leverage and all that sort of thing, but also the most likely to be taken care of in kind of the terms that you want. So I think for them to make that argument is sort of not very appreciated. Now, that being said, from the perspective of international living, I mean, here we're offshore citizen, right? We travel around the world, we live in different countries, we have lots of digital nomads on this channel and things like that. I will say a few things. One, I find that there is a notable improvement in quality of life when you have a home base versus when you do not. It is a much lower quality of life across many metrics to constantly be living in hotels and Airbnbs. Just think about very basic things. If I have a good ergonomic desk to work from, I can be more productive and it's more healthy. Same thing with a good ergonomic chair. Then I can set things up the way that I like in terms of my meals and my entertainment and all this stuff. Like, there are some meaningful advantages that you get from having a long-term place, not necessarily a place that you own, but at least a long-term place, a home base, as opposed to something mobile. And pretty much without exception, the people that I know, including myself, find that after a lot of travel, you're like, travel's highly overrated. Like, it gets stressful, it gets, sort of wears on you. You want to have a home base. And I think when I was much younger, I used to think to myself, like, oh yeah, it'd be great, like always traveling, doing this sort of thing, etc. And as I've aged, I've come to appreciate the wisdom of having a home, having roots, having something grounded. And if you're going to do that, at some point buying the place, I mean, you have to find a place that you like and all that sort of thing. But there is an added benefit there because of the fact that you can customize it in ways that you can't customize a place that you're going to rent. You also don't have the same selection for rent in many cases as you do for buying. So just finding the place that is better for you, you're going to get some advantages in that regard. And I think that matters, like, quality of life and standard of living and lifestyle and values and all that, like that all matters, totally aside from money. So those would be positions I would have. In addition to this, very interesting observation. There is a reason that virtually every billionaire out there ends up with multiple properties, multiple homes. Because it's way better, like your quality of life when you can have a couple homes, starting with 2, maybe 3. There's obviously a point of diminishing returns where it's too much of a hassle to maintain them, or you're not going and utilizing them anyway or whatever. But having a few properties meaningfully improves your quality of life. Meaningfully. You can basically go from one home to another and you sort of have that whole environment set up the way that you want. So big fan of kind of gradually progressing towards having at least two personal residences in multiple different countries, usually multiple different countries, but at least multiple different places. You get different experiences, right? Maybe one's for the summer and one's for the winter. In Canada, it's really common that you have kind of snowbirds. People will go down to Arizona or Florida or Mexico or something like that during the winter and live in Canada during the summer. Some people in Dubai, will be in Dubai during the winter and then in Europe during the summer, or whatever the combination is that works for you. I think is really fantastic. Obviously, the kind of more traditional thing is you have the lake house. It's the person who lives in New York during the week and goes to the home in the Hamptons in the weekend. Not personally my taste, but some people love it, and that's a great thing for them. So big fan of going in that direction. So my conclusion would be, it does matter, number one, what point in your life you're at and what your objectives are. Certainly, there is no one size fits all. Giving advice saying, hey, do this or don't do that or whatever is not good, right? There's no one size fits all. There is a meaningful improvement in quality of life that you can get through owning a place, and in ideally owning 2 or 3 places that are your homes. Might not be the best ROI, but there's more to life than money. Quality of life and lifestyle and values and all that stuff matter. Number 3, what you buy has a big impact on the quality of investment that you're getting. And so I think that a lot of people make a mistake by buying properties they wouldn't invest in. And so, keep that in mind. And finally, you're your own best tenant. So if you're going to buy an investment property that you would live in, you might as well actually go and live in it, because you're going to save on property management costs and vacancy costs and have therefore a better ROI. So hope that helps. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below, and I will look forward to seeing you on the next video.